On a bright Monday morning, a black woman in a simple navy suit stepped into the marble lobby of a powerful corporate headquarters, her posture calm and her eyes observant, but before she could even say her name, a security guard glanced at her and said, "You'll need to wait outside," assuming she was there for delivery or support staff work, while executives in tailored suits walked past without a second look. She didn't argue, didn't raise her voice, and didn't explain who she was. She simply smiled, stepped aside, and watched as the building continued its busy rhythm, because sometimes the most powerful people don't announce themselves, they observe, and within that quiet moment, every careless assumption was being carefully noted. She stood near the glass doors, the cool morning air brushing her face as employees hurried in and out, tapping phones, clutching coffee cups, and laughing at private jokes, none of them realizing that the woman they ignored now held the future of their careers in her hands. Her name was Dr. Maya Reynolds, and she had spent years earning respect in boardrooms across the world, negotiating billion-dollar deals, and turning failing companies into success stories. Today, she wasn't here to impress anyone with titles or status, she was here to understand the soul of this organization, and the lobby had already told her more than any report ever could. As minutes passed, Maya noticed patterns that others missed. She saw how the receptionist greeted certain visitors warmly while barely acknowledging others. She heard a manager complain loudly about employees who didn't know their place, drawing quiet laughter from colleagues. She watched a young intern hesitate before entering the building, adjusting his badge nervously, as if unsure whether he truly belonged there. Each moment added another piece to the puzzle, confirming what the company's declining numbers and rising complaints had hinted at. This wasn't just a business problem, it was a leadership problem. Maya reflected on her own journey, remembering the doors once closed to her, the meetings where her ideas were ignored until repeated by someone else, and the patience it took to rise without losing herself. She had learned long ago that respect couldn't be demanded, it had to be enforced through action. Standing there, dismissed and underestimated, she felt no anger, only clarity. This was exactly why she had acquired this company, and exactly why change was overdue. Inside the building, executives gathered for an emergency meeting, unaware that the woman they were waiting for had already arrived. Emails were being checked, phones buzzing with impatience, and excuses prepared for delays. Then suddenly, the elevator chimed, and the board chair stepped into the lobby, scanning the room with urgency. His eyes landed on Maya, and his expression froze. In that instant, confusion turned into recognition, and recognition into panic. "Dr. Reynolds," he said quickly, his voice tight, "we've been waiting for you." The lobby fell silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. The security guard stiffened, replaying his words in his mind. Maya met the board chair's gaze calmly, nodded once, and thanked him for his patience. She didn't look back at the people who had ignored her moments earlier. She didn't correct anyone or explain herself. She simply walked forward with quiet confidence, heels echoing against the marble floor, every step a reminder that power doesn't always arrive loudly. As she entered the elevator, employees whispered in disbelief, realizing too late that they had just witnessed the cost of assumption. Maya straightened her jacket, her reflection staring back at her in the mirrored walls, steady and unshaken. The real meeting was about to begin, and by the time it ended, nothing in that building would ever be the same again. Exactly 1 minute later, the elevator doors opened and the board chair rushed out, panic flashing across his face as he scanned the lobby and froze when he saw Maya standing calmly near the entrance, his tone instantly changing as he stammered, "Dr. Reynolds, we've been waiting for you," and in that single sentence the air shifted, faces went pale, whispers turned to silence, and the same security guard who told her to wait outside suddenly straightened up in confusion. Maya didn't shame anyone publicly, she simply walked forward, thanked the guard for keeping the entrance secure, and headed upstairs, because true authority doesn't need to shout, it only needs to arrive. Exactly 1 minute later, the elevator doors opened and the board chair rushed out, panic flashing across his face as he scanned the lobby and froze when he saw Maya standing calmly near the entrance, his tone instantly changing as he stammered, "Dr. Reynolds, we've been waiting for you," and in that single sentence the air shifted, faces went pale, whispers turned to silence, and the same security guard who told her to wait outside suddenly straightened up in confusion. Maya didn't shame anyone publicly, she simply walked forward, thanked the guard for keeping the entrance secure, and headed upstairs, because true authority doesn't need to shout, it only needs to arrive. The silence in the lobby was heavy, almost uncomfortable, as people tried to process what they had just witnessed. A moment earlier, Maya had been invisible, dismissed with a gesture and a few careless words. Now, every eye followed her movement, every step echoing with meaning. The receptionist's polite smile faltered, a manager near the elevators swallowed hard, and the guard avoided eye contact, suddenly unsure of where to stand. Maya noticed it all, but her expression remained composed. Power, she knew, was never proven by embarrassment, it was proven by restraint. As she approached the elevators, the board chair walked slightly behind her, no longer rushed, but visibly tense. He attempted small talk, apologizing for the confusion, blaming scheduling errors and miscommunication, but Maya listened without responding. She had already learned what she needed to know. The elevator doors slid open, and a group of executives stepped out, laughing mid-conversation, until they saw her. Their laughter stopped instantly. Faces tightened. Spines straightened. Some recognized her immediately from press photos and industry events, others recognized her authority by the way the board chair deferred to her presence. Inside the elevator, no one spoke. The hum of the cables and the soft music felt louder than any conversation could have been. Maya stood at the center, calm and grounded, her reflection multiplied in the mirrored walls. She wasn't replaying the slight in her mind, she was replaying the patterns. This wasn't about one guard or one comment. It was about a system that allowed assumptions to replace judgment and hierarchy to silence respect. When the elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, assistants scrambled to open doors and clear hallways. The atmosphere shifted from casual confidence to controlled anxiety. People whispered into headsets, chairs were pulled back, and water glasses were refilled as if preparation could erase what had already been revealed. Maya entered the boardroom last, allowing everyone else to take their seats first. It was a habit she had learned long ago: observe before acting, listen before deciding. She took her seat at the head of the table, folded her hands, and looked around the room. These were the people who had run the company day to day, who shaped its culture, who decided whose voices mattered and whose didn't. Some avoided her gaze. Others offered polite smiles, hoping professionalism could mask discomfort. Maya let the silence stretch, just long enough to make everyone aware of it. "I always arrive early," she said finally, her voice calm and steady. "It tells me everything I need to know." No one interrupted. No one laughed. She continued, explaining that leadership wasn't tested during presentations or quarterly reports, it was tested in hallways, lobbies, and unguarded moments. She spoke about respect, accountability, and the cost of overlooking people based on assumption rather than ability. Every word landed with precision, not anger. Downstairs, the lobby slowly returned to its routine, but something had shifted. The guard replayed the moment in his head, realizing how easily authority could be misjudged. Employees whispered about what they had seen, understanding that the company's future had just changed direction. And upstairs, as Maya began the meeting she had waited for, one truth was clear to everyone in the room: the minute she had been told to wait outside was the minute she confirmed exactly who needed to be replaced inside. In the boardroom, executives tried to recover with forced smiles and rehearsed compliments, but Maya calmly began the meeting by replaying exactly what she had witnessed in the lobby, word for word, moment for moment, explaining that leadership is not about profit alone but about culture, accountability, and respect. She painted a picture of the company as it truly was, a place where appearances often masked dysfunction, where decisions were influenced more by ego than strategy, and where talented employees quietly left because they felt undervalued. Maya didn't raise her voice. She didn't yell or berate anyone. Her power came from precision, from knowing exactly what needed to be addressed and presenting it with unwavering clarity. She continued, revealing data she had collected during her preliminary review, charts showing unusually high employee turnover, reports of complaints that had been quietly settled without resolution, and key innovation projects that had stalled due to arrogance at the top. Every graph, every statistic told the same story: the company's success was being undermined by the very people who were meant to drive it forward. The room was silent, not because her words were threatening, but because they left no room for denial. Each executive realized that the reality they had avoided acknowledging was now laid bare. Maya then addressed the management team individually, recalling specific instances where leadership had failed in small but meaningful ways, where dismissive remarks had silenced innovation, where favoritism had created division, where assumptions about employees' abilities had limited opportunities for growth. She explained calmly that these patterns were not isolated incidents, they were systemic. And she drew a direct connection between these failures and the broader consequences for the company: missed profits, damaged reputation, low morale, and talent leaving for competitors. She spoke not as an accuser, but as an observer who had watched carefully, noting every detail and every misstep. Her tone was measured, her gestures deliberate. She did not humiliate, shame, or lecture. Instead, she invited reflection. She asked questions that exposed thoughtlessness, such as, why do we allow assumptions to override judgment, and how do we measure respect within our teams? Each executive squirmed slightly, realizing that the answers were not simple, and that their leadership had contributed to the very culture that had cost the company so much. Maya's approach was surgical, dismantling complacency without creating chaos. Then, after laying bare the facts, she paused. Her eyes swept across the room, meeting each person's gaze in turn. In that moment, it became clear, this was a turning point. With steady hands and a firm voice, she announced that effective immediately, the entire senior management team was terminated. She outlined a clear plan for interim leaders who would be brought in to instill accountability, fairness, inclusion, and performance. The decision was swift, decisive, and absolute. No exceptions. No delays. The room fell silent, not from fear alone, but from the realization that the era of unchecked arrogance had ended and that true leadership had arrived in the form of clarity, courage, and uncompromising vision. Executives who had once carried themselves with an air of untouchable authority now understood that power was not inherited or assumed, it was earned through respect and action. Maya didn't celebrate or gloat, she simply continued the meeting, setting expectations, assigning responsibilities, and outlining the immediate steps for the company to rebuild trust, inspire employees, and reclaim lost ground. Every word, every decision, reinforced the principle she had demonstrated in the lobby: leadership is not about appearances, titles, or ego. Leadership is about observing, understanding, and acting decisively when the time comes. By the end of the meeting, the executives who remained understood the weight of the lesson. The culture of fear, favoritism, and complacency had been dismantled in an instant, replaced by a clear standard of accountability. And for everyone in that room, it was undeniable: Dr. Maya Reynolds had not just taken control of the company, she had redefined what leadership truly meant, and from that moment forward, no one would ever mistake authority for mere presence again. As the days turned into weeks, the effects of her decisive leadership began to ripple throughout the company. New policies emphasizing accountability and respect were implemented. Managers were trained not just to evaluate performance, but to observe and support the people around them. Employees felt empowered to voice concerns and contribute ideas without fear of dismissal or ridicule. Meetings were no longer arenas for ego, but spaces for collaboration. Slowly, the company culture shifted from one of silence and complacency to one of engagement and inclusion. With culture transformed, the results followed. Profits, long stagnant, began to rise. Key projects that had stalled due to mismanagement moved forward. Teams collaborated more efficiently, innovation returned, and employee retention improved dramatically. External clients noticed the difference too. the company's reputation shifted from that of a rigid, hierarchical organization to a place where integrity and respect drove decisions. Industry analysts began writing about the sudden turnaround, and quietly, Maya's story became something of a legend in business circles. It wasn't about the dramatic firing of the senior management team, it was about the principle she had demonstrated: respect is non-negotiable, and assumptions can cost more than anyone realizes. Her actions sent a broader message, one that extended far beyond the building itself. Stories of employees gaining confidence, of previously ignored ideas being implemented, and of managers learning to listen before acting circulated throughout the organization. Maya's presence and her approach became a case study in leadership programs. People began to understand that authority wasn't about who occupied the corner office or who spoke the loudest in meetings, it was about observing, understanding, and acting decisively when necessary. She had shown that leadership is earned in moments when no one else is paying attention, and that the quiet, measured exercise of power can be more transformative than any public display of force. Most importantly, the lesson was simple yet profound: never judge authority by appearance. That day in the lobby, the very people who had dismissed her assumed she was insignificant, unaware that she not only owned the company but was poised to reshape its future. Maya Reynolds proved that respect, fairness, and decisive action are the real markers of leadership, and that sometimes, the person you tell to wait outside is the very one who holds the keys to everything. From that day on, the building itself seemed to hum with a renewed energy, a reminder that true leadership leaves an indelible mark on both people and culture. If this story touched your heart, like this video to support the message. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories. And comment below, what lesson did you take from Eli's story? Your support helps these stories reach more people. Thanks for watching.